Channeling her passion for digital, Kadia Francis launched the Digital Jamaica blog in 2018. 3 years on, and Digital Jamaica has blossomed into a full-fledged information exchange and knowledge-sharing hub to include a podcast, live show, and bi-monthly webinar, all focused on the growth and development of tech in Jamaica and the professionals in those spaces. The digital frontier is how the ordinary citizens of small island states can build legitimate online businesses with access to global markets. Kadia's mission is to future-proof Jamaicans through digital literacy, skills training, and the facilitation of access to crucial information. And so, in April 2020, the Digital Disruption Agency was born. Since then, she has trained over 3,000 Jamaicans and over 500 persons in the Caribbean, as well as developed specialty literacy and skills training programs for both private and public sector organizations. Kadia strongly believes in the power of tech to bring about radical economic self-sufficiency, especially for vulnerable groups, and to foster a more inclusive society. Kadia is a graduate of the University of Technology and holds an upper second class honors degree in law.
All right, it's good to see you again, Aishiba, guys. Digital Jamaica has adopted Aishiba into our community. So we're happy to see her in certain spaces. Welcome. Thank you guys for having me. I'm always excited to talk to young people about tech and what you can do in tech and what the possibilities are, because from where I'm sitting, possibilities are unquantifiable, right? So there's a lot going on over here. So I am coming from the space of tech. So most of what I'm going to be talking to you about today is centered around tech because I like to stay in my lane, right? But you guys don't have to, and that's the beauty about your humanities degree. So my name is Kadia Francis. You guys would have heard the introduction. But I want to tell you a little bit about my story, because when I was contacted, pick up yourself, Kadia Francis. When I was contacted by Kadia, I was like, okay, this is the first time anybody has ever asked me, how did you actually get into this space? Meaning persons are talking about tech and all that good stuff, but nobody has ever really asked me to share my story about how I came from a legal background to a tech background, and I jumped at the opportunity, especially when I realized that you guys were talking about the humanities. And I was like, excellent, excellent, because humanities degree have a lot of benefits. In fact, more benefits than a lot of other types of degrees. And we're going to get into it, right? But first, a little bit about my story. Guys, it took me 10 years to get into law school. 10 years, and it's not because I'm done. I can assure you, it's not because I'm done. It took me 10 years and 2 continents to get into law school, mostly because of financial situations and family situations. But growing up watching Law and Order and Matlock, I'm giving away my age, I was always like, the intro to Law and Order. I was like, yeah, that's me. I want the robe, I want the weird curly wig, I want all of it. This is happening. I love it. And because I talk a lot, and you're gonna know by the end of this that I do talk a lot. I talk a lot, and I like explaining things, and I like teaching, and I like arguing. I'm very argumentative. I am, right? It's good to know your strengths and weaknesses. And so I thought, how could I channel, what career can I channel all of that into? And law was it. So it took me 10 years. And I finally, when I came back to Jamaica in about 2008, I decided I was gonna go for it. Didn't happen in 2008. It didn't happen until 2012, guys. I finally was able to afford to get into university. I got into UE. UE was like, well, you can't do this part-time because for whatever reason, you can't do a law degree part-time at UE. Get with the times, UE, right? But that was what that was. I was like, okay, let's try UTech. And UTech said, sure, come on in, right? And I went to UTech. Guys, first year was a headache. As you guys all know, your first year can be very difficult. Going into second year, I went into second year strong, and I was like, okay, only problem I have, somebody's mic is on. The only problem I have is that I could not afford the text because legal textbooks in Jamaica is a small fortune. You're looking at anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000 for one textbook, especially if it's a name that you cannot pronounce. If the author is a name that you cannot pronounce, it's expensive. So I was like, okay, so I can choose between paying on a fee or buy the book on a pick. And they're like, no, you pick. So I had to figure out a way to make it work. And what did I do? Google. I Christopher Columbus style Google. I discovered it. And I realized that the more I was able to learn how to research on Google, the more information I was able to find. And I realized that my teachers were cheating, because all this time I thought they were so brilliant. And they were sending me, you know, teachers send you these notes and these excerpts and stuff, and you're going, oh, they wrote this. No, they didn't. They got it offline. They repackaged it, and they were sending it to you. And we were here thinking, you're so great. No, it was Google all this time. So I realized that Google taught me law for the first 2 years of law school, because I was able to find the resources that my lecturers were using. I was like, well, we need to come class, because me I work full time on other things I'm going. I'm gonna really want to come up here for one hour class at some odd hours of the day to try to get back to work and then traffic. So I started not appearing in classes a lot, but my grades skyrocketed because I was able to find those resources on it. But not only was I able to find handouts and stuff, I was able to find excerpts from books, wink, wink, right? I borrowed these excerpts that I was able to acquire offline. I'm using legal terminology here because, you know, acquired offline. And I was able to find excerpts from books. And what I could afford in terms of digital books, like Kindle-based versions, I was able to get those. And that was how, guys, that's the basic story of how I went from an average student in year 1 of law school to an honor student by the end of the year, with a whole group of people with me. Because what I decided to do was gather my friends, because Kadia is an informer. Anything Kadia knows, I have to tell people, especially where it relates to the transfer of information. I'm very big on that. I don't believe that information should be kept a secret or be kept in silos. Information for share, people for know things, so all can be great, right? That's how I am. And so I gathered my friends and we had a study group. Yes, and we were all successful. But in the midst of that, I realized I probably am not going to study law. This is probably not going to be what I do for a living, because one, there's a perception that there are too many lawyers in Jamaica. And because of that, the demand is lower than the supply. And so they want to pay $70,000 a month for your almost $3 million degree. And that was not going to happen, right? So and as a creative person, I was looking for an outlet that would be more challenging and that would force me to be more creative and to just develop those skills. And I realized that tech was it. And that's when I made the switch in my head. Immediately after law school, I went into teaching digital literacy, and because I learned a lot. But people ask me, do you regret doing law? Absolutely not. And if I had to do it over again, I would have done it all over again, because of not necessarily what I learned in terms of the modules, but what the in-between things, the in-between the lines, the underlying things that I learned while doing that degree is what has served me and carried me all this way in my career. So I want to talk about that. Where it relates to your humanities degrees. What are the underlying things that you are learning as a student in any one of these faculties under humanities that can really carry you into the jobs of the future? Humanities degrees, it fosters a deeper understanding of other people. And it's funny because you would think as the world becomes more technologically advanced, the more robotics become a thing, and machine learning and artificial intelligence and all them sexy words you hear Facebook talking about, the metaverse, right? Not all of that is a possibility and it's growing exponentially. You're thinking, what is this people thing? What does people have to do with anything? Actually, it has a lot to do with everything, the underlying basis of everything tech, people. Right? And so because of your humanities degrees and what your humanities degree affords you in terms of the study of languages, history, culture, and people, you are in a prime position as a humanities student to make the transfer into the tech space. In fact, for some of you, it's not even a transfer, right? It's a direct placement within the technological field. So what is the benefits of it though, your humanities degree? Well, when we're talking about jobs of the future, we're talking about jobs that require skills that are highly cognitive based. What do I mean by highly cognitive based, or what do I mean by cognitive skills? So these are the core skills that your brain uses to think, to read, to learn, to remember things, to reason things, to pay attention to things. These are core cognitive skills. Now, these things work together with information that you are receiving, external information that you're receiving, and it moves into your knowledge bank and it reactivates every time you need to do something. So there's a lot of things going on up in your brain now. Granted, I am not a cognitive specialist, etc. I just understand the basics of what these things are. But what I do know is that all of these things work together to make you an efficient or proficient worker, laborer, entrepreneur, whatever, right? Just in terms of human interaction in general. Now, with a humanities degree as a humanities student, some of the underlying things that you learn are very highly cognitive based, right? So, and these are what we call soft skills. You ever gone into an interview, or you ever been in any session where persons are talking to you about how to interview, and they're talking about soft skills and how important soft skills are, and you're thinking, oh, they mean that I need to talk louder, but that's good, that's nice, but that's basic, right? We're talking about the reasons why soft skills or cognitive skills or foundational skills, these are all interchangeable at this point. The reasons why these things are so important, in fact, in some instances, more important than technical skills, or just as important as technical skills, is because of what is going to be needed going forward in terms of how we communicate as a right? But how can cognitive skills make you marketable? And that's what we're really talking about. When we're talking about positioning our young people for jobs of the future or the future world of work, we're talking about how can we make you more visible and more marketable to future employers. Cognitive skills is what is going to do that for you. Now, according to McKinsey is kind of a tech-based research group where most people go for because they've established themselves as a really good resource. You guys understand about assessing resources, etc. McKinsey is a really good resource. Now, according to McKinsey and their observations, artificial intelligence, automation, machine learning, Internet of Things, all of that is changing the world of work. So, which means that machines have begun thinking for us, and not only are they thinking for us, they're operating for us. And the more we progress technologically is the more that is going to be so. You see it on TV, and it is true to a certain degree, right? However, before we start panicking, it's not going to be a situation where machines are going to overtake humans, right? Humans are smart enough to not develop that kind of technology that will then replace us. At least we hope humans are smart enough. That is yet to be seen. However, right, it doesn't mean the end of human labor or human input, but what will change is the type of input. So more brain, less brawn. And by brawn, I mean less muscle power, less physical manual labor, and more cognitive-based skills. So as we move away from the manual and physical and what we call low basic cognitive jobs, there will be an increased demand for technological, social, and emotional skill sets. You can believe that? The more robot we get is the more emotional we need to get, right? Go figure. So in other words, persons with highly cognitive skills or foundational skills will be at a distinct advantage. So you're going into a job interview, Aishiba, and you have your humanities degrees and you're empathetic and you are a good thinker, you have critical writing skills and you're a great communicator. We all know she's a great communicator, right? And you're a great communicator and you're going up for a job against somebody who dry, boring, bland, will just have the bare technical skills. That person is not, you are going to be at a far greater advantage than that person, even if that person has experience, right? So all citizens benefit from having foundational skills that will help them fulfill three broad criteria or three broad categories. And this is no matter the sector, whether it's tech or any other sector. And these are, if you can add value beyond what can be done by automated processes and systems and intelligent machines. Meaning that, great, machine learning is fine, and Facebook implements machine learning across all its platforms, but there's still humans behind the scenes watching what's happening, and that's how your accounts can get blocked sometimes or suspended sometimes, right? That's how you can have customer services and help desks, etc., because there are actually people behind the scenes looking at your content, making sure that your content follow company guidelines, platform guidelines, etc. There are still people there, right? So if you can add value beyond what a machine can do, because remember, a machine is really computational. We're looking for that humanness there, and a machine at this point can't necessarily or does not necessarily have all that it takes to be able to detect that, because sometimes there are nuances in discussions and conversations, there are contexts, etc., that a machine will not be able to pick up, but a human can, right? So there is that. The other one is, if you can operate in a digital environment. No, guys, the government said that they're putting more Wi-Fis in public areas, and that is going to make Jamaica a digital society. Now, I'm not sure who is advising the government and what definition of digital society that they're going with, but that's not even the basic of a digital society, right? A digital society has levels to it, and it includes every citizen being digitally literate. It includes digital integration on all levels, and it also includes what I would like to consider experiential technology being put into place to solve our perennial problems. So that is what makes somewhere a digital society, and that's what makes it a digital environment. Now, if you can operate within that digital environment comfortably, then that's a skill set that you have that will make you more marketable in the future as well. And the third one is adaptability. Guys, we keep talking about, since COVID liquid our face, everything is digital transformation, digital economy, everything is digital revolution. The digital revolution, the technological revolution happened 50 years ago. We are late. We are very late, right? And so what we're experiencing now is a series of technological evolutions. Technology continues to evolve and evolve at a breakneck rate, so much so that we are being left behind at an alarming rate. But not only are we being left behind at an alarming rate, in order for us to catch up, we are going to have to spend a lot of money, probably more than what the country is worth, if I was going to be honest with you, in getting there. But if we can train our citizens to become more adaptable to technology, and if we can put the facilities and the resources in place to enable that kind of digital environment, then we can catch up a lot quicker, right? And so adaptability is important, and because adaptability not only in terms of integration, but adaptability in terms of the way we work. And I'll give you an example. COVID came, kicked us in the teeth, and everybody was scrambling. Employers were scrambling. What were they going to do? Non-essential workers, what are we going to do? We said, okay, we're going to do remote working. The minute we thought COVID done, I'm not sure why we thought COVID is done, but the minute we thought COVID done, back in about April or so of this year, all of a sudden employers are like, okay, well guys, that's nice. back to work. You have to come back into work. And what happened? We had another spike, right? So this is what we're talking about. It's not just adaptation temporarily, but it's permanent and continuous adaptations in order to make it work, in order to create that sustainable digital environment. Because remember, we were already talking about flexi work week for years. If we had flexi work week, which is an adaptation, in place, a lot of businesses wouldn't have suffered as much as they have suffered during COVID, because it would not have taken that, the downtime wouldn't have been that great. And we are yet to see the economical damage of COVID, because we have not yet calculated it, because we're still living in COVID. So you can just imagine what that is going to be at the end of the day. But that's what adaptability is. So in a nutshell, we're talking about your humanities degree giving you the ability to think a particular way, to act a particular way, developing your soft skills, right? And these are a mix of emotional and social based skills that enhances human interaction and allows you to be innovative. And in technology, innovation is the key. So let's look at some soft skills. Logic and reasoning. Oh boy, you ever hear the saying, common sense, not common? I have seen Jamaica be taken over by anti-vax sentiments all over the place. And because we have access to so much information and we're not being logical or reasonable or employing critical thinking skills in terms of how we find information, process information, and interpret information, a lot of misinformation is going around and going on. All we need to hear is Dr. So-and-so said. No, we have not verified Dr. So-and-so credentials. It could be a doctor of theology for all we know. All we hear is doctor, and especially if them high yellow or white or very light bright, of course, they're instantly believable, and that is causing a problem in terms of, misinformation being spread. So logic and reasoning, unfortunately, the more we get into this information age, is the less that is becoming a thing, and that's a problem. That's a serious problem. Writing and critical reading skills. Oh boy, this is another special one, guys, because the other day, Digital Jamaica put out a call for interns. And guys, I don't know what's happening in the universities, but the way young people are writing is abysmal in terms of how they convey who they are, how they talk about who they are, how they string sentences together, or they put paragraphs together. It was Special Olympics, because for a lot of it, I could not understand what they were trying to say, or it was difficult for me. And I realized that we're losing critical writing and reading skills in our universities, etc. It's becoming a problem. And I don't know if it's because universities are not necessarily focusing on writing necessarily. I know for my law degree, I had to do legal writing, and I had to do a whole other course about law and language and writing and stuff like that. So we're having a problem where that is concerned as well. In humanities, you are writing for your degree. It's very text-based, textual learning based. Then you get an opportunity to develop those skills as well. Emotional and social intelligence. If you have ever gone online and disagree with something somebody said in the comments, and then comments to tell them about their mother, their father, how much string make them up, you are exhibiting a lack of emotional and social intelligence, and it is a problem, right? Emotional intelligence talks about the way we process our emotions, how we then reflect that outwardly, and what that speaks in terms of how we relate to other persons and how we even relate to ourselves internally, right? And if we don't have a firm grasp or hold on our emotions and be able to control ourselves in particular environments and being able to walk away from situations or handle situations in a different way, then we are exhibiting a lack of emotional and social intelligence. Unfortunately for us, it's a cultural thing. Not being emotionally intelligent or socially intelligent is cultural, and it's not just Jamaica, it's Caribbean, it's Black culture generally. We tend to not know how to work out problems, how to talk things out, how to reason things out. We tend to always go from 0 to savage level 1000 in like less than a minute, right? Computational thinking. Now, you guys have heard about STEM, etc. But when we're talking about computational thinking, what we're talking about is your ability to kind of map things out in a technical kind of way, similar to how computers do. Now, mind you, it was a person who wrote the code for the computer to be able to do that. And that person had to have some level of computational thinking to be able to create something like that. So computational thinking takes you from a linear way of thinking and allows you to think from different perspectives, different angles, to come at a problem from backwards, sideways, upward, forwards, in many different ways to see if you can find some kind of solution to solve a problem and that kind of thing. So that is what computational thinking is, and it's very technical based, it's very mathematical based. But it's also necessary, especially if we're looking at technology and moving into that space. Creative thinking. And you're thinking tech and creativity, where we don't usually make that connection between tech and creativity, but binary codes are creative. Now imagine a person who can sit down and write ones and zeros and turn it into what you see when you log on to Instagram, or turn it into what you see when you turn on your TV. Those are codes. Somebody would have had to sit down and write those codes. And when they're sitting down and writing those codes, they're going to have to think, okay, what do I want them to see on this end? And how do I want it to look to them on that end? And then they have to create an entire code around that. That's creative thinking. And creative thinking and technology goes hand in hand. Again, the metaverse. We are literally moving into a world where we're going to become real life Sims characters, right? Creative thinking. Empathy. Why is empathy so important? You're on the road, something happens. What is the first thing you do? And you record it. And then you take it and you put it on social media. Imagine somebody in a state of grief. Something tragic just happened. Something sad just happened. And the first thing you think to do is this, to record it, because you want to be the first. You are the roving reporter, and you want the first TVJ and CVN, and put it out there on the news, or put it out there in social media, so you can build clout off of someone else's suffering. That's a lack of empathy. And as persons who are studying the humanities, who study culture and people, you're supposed to be, at least theoretically, you're supposed to be more empathetic to the human condition and what can happen when persons are experiencing certain things, etc. Right? So empathy is a benefit. Innovative thinking, because critical thinking and reasoning faculties are heightened, you are now more innovative in the way you're thinking about things. Now, if you ever hear Jamaicans say, Tonya and make fashion, this is what they are talking about. How do we, and you will find this a lot, if you should leave here in Jamaica and go elsewhere, and say you're going into another educational institution, or you have a certain amount of experience in a particular kind of job here, you're moving overseas, you're going to find that in many areas, you're a little bit more advanced than other people. And I'm talking about nurses, teachers, doctors, because nobody can afford them and make fashion more than these people, right? Imagine you're a doctor in an emergency unit, and your defibrillator not working, and you have to stitch up things and use chicken wire and hook it up and use a toothpick and juke it there so to make it work. We have created, developed as a people the ability to take things that were never meant for us and turn it into something that benefits us, whether it's a piece of technology or a piece of machinery or a piece of software. We become very, very good at this. And that is what innovative thinking is, right? Turn your hand, make fashion, or what I said, necessity is the mother of invention. We are very good at this because as a people who has always had less, we have turned that less into more. And we can even go back to our ancestral days where I think pig trotters and pigtail and these kind of the food, our food, where you think it comes from? It comes from the scraps that the slaves used to get and they turned it into something delicious. It's ingrained in our DNA to be innovative and creative in what we do. And now we can monetize that and we can benefit from something that at first was meant to break us, but has actually made us more marketable, right? Effective communication. This is the cause for a lot of relationship breakdown, whether it's romantic relationships, whether it's familial relationships, or whether it's friendships. Your inability to communicate is what may be causing you to not progress. And people think once I am smart, once I am intelligent academically, and once I'm able to present myself a certain way, then I don't need to be able to communicate effectively. Wrong. Nobody cares how you look, Suzanne. You can be cute as a button. If you cannot communicate, then nobody's interested, right? And because communication is going to be exceptionally important, especially now, because if you look at platforms like social media, podcasting platforms, YouTube, all of these different platforms, what are the main drivers of this type of platform? It's communication. It's different forms of communication, and technology is changing media and the way we communicate with each other across these platforms, right? So communication, effective communication is important. Ideation and conceptualizing ideas. It is one thing to have a ton of ideas. It's another thing to be able to conceptualize that idea. So you're taking it from just idea and you're building a plan around, okay, so this is what this can look like in the real world. These are examples of what it can look like. This is how it will function. This is the operational process behind it. That ability to kind of order things and conceptualize and turn that conceptualization into an actual product is a distinct advantage for persons, because that's the foundations of technology, right? Being able to conceptualize. There's so many things that are out now that you can actually buy, and it's absolutely ridiculous because you're thinking, who came up with this? Who thought about this in them sleep and come up with this? And now you're able to go on Amazon and buy it for $9.99, right? And lastly, but certainly not least, is that you become more multimodal, right? Somebody said, I know so many people when I discovered Mayor. We're right there, Mayor. So you become more multimodal as well, right? So because you now have a wider knowledge base, because in humanities, even though you're focusing on one field of study, they tend to incorporate other fields of study in humanities. So you have a broader knowledge base. And because you have a broader knowledge base, you can do what we call multimodal thinking. Again, it's being able to think not just in the context of this is my area, this is my knowledge base, but across several knowledge bases to come to create the concept, to create the idea, and then to be able to execute that. So multimodal thinking is also important. If you think of a platform again, like a social media platform, let's say Instagram. You can upload images, you can upload photos, you can use stories, you can add captions, you can add hashtags. There are so many different levels. The process to just make that platform work involves so many different levels, and somebody had to build that architecture. That's multimodal thinking, right? Any questions so far, guys, in terms of what I'm saying about soft skills? Which one of these soft skills do you guys I'm going to go to the chat. Which one of these soft skills do you guys have? So logical, so raise your hand. Logic and reason. Who in here can say that they're a logical, reasonable thinking person? Not all the time. So when I got raise my hand and put in the chat, guys. Do the raise hand, not the raise hand feature, the emoji. Me. So Shanala Brown says she's a logical and reasonable thinker. All right. Jokes on you, because people that who think they're logical and reasonable are not necessarily the most logical and reasonable people. But all right, Shanala. All right. So who here is a good writer? Who has the writing ability down pat, that can serenade and can finesse you with some writing? Tiana says, Tiana, Danielle, Shamar, all right. Okay, define good. Okay, what is good writing is subjective though, isn't it, Danielle? And the good thing about digital is that it's your audience who decides if your writing is good or if it's not good, right? So based on what people tell you say you can write, are you right? Well, can you put your thoughts down on paper in a way where it's easily communicable to other people and they can understand what you're feeling? Think about the best book you've ever read and how that made you feel like you were connected to the story. You were right there with the author, because if you get punched in the face, how could he leave you for your sister? That kind of writing, right? All right. So who in here is a creative thinker? Who in here would say that they're creative? So Radhika, Sherry, okay, so they're, okay. Somebody says me, definitely. Oh, there is a Susan in here? Oh no. Susan, I wasn't talking about you. All right then. Who in here would say that they're innovative in terms of their thinking? So you have a project, right? And you're part of a group project, and you have to put something together, and it's not a skit, because there's, every time there's a group project, which in Jamaican schools, it has to be a skit every single time without fail. It has to be a skit, right? Who are the skit people? Who are the skit people here who always have to do a skit for group work? That was me. All right, so okay, so multimodal thinking. How many of you are not just focusing on your specific area, but you're looking at all other areas that could be correlated to your areas to expand your way of thinking? Yes, Danielle say yes. That's her. Shanala have all of them. Shanala can get rich and switch fast because she have all of them. Right? Yes. Period. Okay. So guys, those are some of the cognitive skills that, and if you don't have these skills right now, you can learn to work on them, because technology is so bomb that there's several different programs and software and apps that you can go to develop those cognitive skills. And actually social media, if done correctly, can also help you develop those cognitive skills, because again, you're going to have to communicate with other people, right? And especially if you're in your special groups or your interest groups or your professional groups and you want to share, because, I look at the full person in the groups, you have to say something for me to sound smart, right? Which means you have to go research a thing, and if somebody drop a word and you don't understand a word, you have to go look for it and then act like you didn't know how the words say. Guys, there's no shame in that. That's what I do, and I'm not afraid to tell people, say, the word above my pay grade, so let me go look feet and come back, and then you can respond. Yeah. So what are my 5 key skills that I picked up during my law degree that has carried me right throughout my career in tech? Adaptability. Number 1, adaptability. I had to adapt from a legal mindset, because everything was therefore, what are some other legal terminologies? Hereinafter, I was like Miss Jargon Queen, right? I knew all the legal jargons, and in every letter, hereinafter, therefore, yeah, that was me. All right. Self-learning. I taught myself how to develop computers, edit podcasts, graphic design, every single thing you see on the Digital Jamaica platform, whether it's a podcast, the blog, the social media, I created it. And I had to learn, because me could not afford 200 to pay someone to right? Resourcefulness, being able to go online and find the resources that you're going to need to carry out the task that you need to carry out to be as efficient and consistent as you can be, is a skill. Perceptivity, being able to look around you and seeing what's happened and interpret that and make sense of it, is perceptivity. And I think that's something that I've developed over time. And finally, being able to do research, which ties back to my resourcefulness. Guys, I only have 5 minutes and I really want to do a Q&A. But I was sent a list of the different faculties, and I created some jobs that you guys could consider in the tech space. So I'm going to just throw 2 of them, and then Q&A, you can use the raise hand feature and we can chat. Okay, so journalists, where are the journalists in here? Who here is studying journalism? So if you are a journalist, here are some other jobs you could consider. You could be a multimedia specialist. Think about Kalila Reynolds, who made almost $30 million this year from our YouTube channel. Multimedia specialist, you can be a copywriter. Copywriting is important. What do we mean by copywriting? Have you guys ever gone on our website and seen the text on the website? That is a special art form. That's a technical skill that you have to be able to communicate an information about a brand or a business on the web. So that's what we call copywriting. Public relations, tech journalism. Tech journalists make a lot of money. And technical writer, as a technical writer, you can make up to $72,000 annually. All right, where are my archaeologists and my history majors? You can be an archaeological technician, and this person assists in various field work, but you have to be able to do archaeological surveys. You have to be able to use digital data. You have to be able to use digital data capture and recording devices on smart devices like iPads. You have to be familiar with GPS and GIS programs. You can make up to $60,000 a year. For my historians, you can make up to $60,000 a year being a cultural resources technician. No, a lot of these titles did not exist before, right? You can be a digital photographer. Well, some of the skills involved is digital photography, electronic data collection, GIS mapping, and technical writing. Where are my educators? You can become software testers. Yes, you with additional certification, you can get a job testing software before they come to market. You can be a computer support analyst, help desk technician, instructors, curriculum instructional design, which can make you up to $70,000 annually. You can become a training and development specialist. You're looking at over $100,000 annually. Where are my linguists? If you're a linguist, you can go into forensic linguistics, and these are people who perform language analysis on like things like emergency calls, suicide letters, they deal with threat communication and social media communication during legal proceedings. So if you guys remember the case, what was that case of that young guy who was killed because he had on the hoodie? I forgot what was the name of it, and the guy got away. That case involved a Jamaican-born linguist who was very involved in that case because Trayvon Martin, yes, the conversation Trayvon Martin was having with his friend on the phone, a linguist had to come in and explain to the jury because they were using what we call AAV, which is African-American vernacular. And he had to come in and explain what this thing means, what that thing, blah, 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 blah. Now, that's a job where you can make between $40,000 to $100,000 a month. You can be an information architect. That's anywhere between $85 to $100 US a month. An information architect focuses on organizing and structuring information on a website or on an app, right? And this is a sub-discipline of being a user experience designer. You can be a computational linguist with additional certifications. And usually you work with software engineers to develop languages for software and computer programs. Again, you're looking at up to $100,000. You can be a localization specialist, and that is where you're adapting a product, and you're working in a marketing space where you're working with marketers to adapt a product to a culture, especially as it tied to a language for better proliferation within that market. All right. So these are just some of the jobs you can do. Now, how do you find out what kind of jobs correspond to what you're studying. The first thing I would say is to niche, right? Go on digital job boards, go on Google Jobs, set up your Google alert so you can find new jobs and look at what the salaries are and what the job role entails and what the qualifications are, and start streamlining your learning within that area. And the last thing is, where do you learn more about your niche? Join interest-based and professional groups, learn, but most importantly, add value to those communities. Guys, I am out of time. I hope I could get an extra 5 minutes for some Q&A. Hopefully, Shadi, I beg you, 5 minutes. Guys, any questions? I want to be able to answer your question before I go. Any question? Could you repeat the last one, please? So the last job, Candice, localization specialist. The localization specialist is localization is the process of adapting a product to a local market. So say for instance, when Sotheby's was coming into Jamaica, any company that is coming into a space, they can't just run in. Remember what Digicel had to do? Digicel never just run in, right? Digicel kind of took success, and what did Digicel do? Digicel adapted itself to resemble our culture. So you start seeing red, yellow, and green, and you started hearing the language change and more about the same thing with Pepsi. Pepsi came in and I am a Jamaican, and in the commercials it was what was the song? Mash up to this. That song, they started using reggae songs in their commercials. They started using popular Jamaican DJs, etc. Right? So that is what we call localization in marketing, and it is really looking at the culture, looking at the cultural space, looking at the experiences of the people, looking at the language of the people, and then adapting your brand to that, so that brand can do well in that space. And multinational brands do this a lot, so they're always looking for experts within that space. Guys, any other question? Is it possible to get a list of the jobs you recommended, so that, yes, this entire thing, I made sure I wrote it out because I wanted to give it to you guys as a handout. So I'm going to give it to Shadia and ask Shadia to share with you guys. One more thing before I go, guys, on November 18th and 19th, we're having our first annual youth summit. Our wonderful host is Miss Aishiba Karmal. Yes, she's going to be our host for day one. Guys, it's going to be a series of panel discussion talking about the future of work and how digitization affects employment, but it's specifically geared towards young people like yourselves. We're going to be telling you how to position yourselves, how to prepare yourself, what are some things you can study, where you can go get training. And then on day 2, workshops. Public relations, communications, social media, monetization, resume writing, all those workshops are going to take place on day 2, and we'll space them out. So if you go every single one of the workshops, then you can go all 6 workshops, because we space them out that way. So guys, please go and register. If I'm allowed, I can drop the registration link in the chat, so you guys can go and check it out and register, and make sure that you squeeze every last drop out of it, because you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions, get answers, etc. So guys, that's the link. Oh, I sent it to Shadia. Shadia, can you send it to the group? Guys, any other questions before I go real quick? I don't want to take up too much time. Any other questions, guys, quickly? No further questions.
Kadia, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, awesome. So if it is that we don't have any questions coming in now, is there any way that we can reach you?
Yes. Oh my God, you see, I should have been prompting me. Oh my God. So you guys can find me over on Digital Jamaica on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Digital Jamaica. You can find me over there. I'm always sharing a ton of information. You are going to be overwhelmed by information over there. So guys, go and check out the Digital Jamaica platform. We have an internship program, guys, paid internships over at Dare.Jamaica. It's an initiative of Digital Jamaica. We have 25 paid internship positions for 4th year university students, recent graduates, and young professionals. Go and check out what those internships are, and we have 2 permanent job placements for a senior developer and a UI UX developer with some experience. Go and check that out as well, okay? So that's dare.jamaica and digital.jamaica. Follow us on both platforms. We're always putting out job notices and internships and just a ton of information. As soon as I leave here, I'm going to do a post on 7 ways you can land remote jobs as a university student. I'm going to be putting out a post about that because Aishiba was our host for that as well, right? Aishiba, the working abroad. Right, we're finally publishing the replays from our Working Abroad pop-up talk, and it was amazing. So you guys can go and check that out as well. Ashiba, can you drop the one for Digital Jamaica as well? Thank you guys so much. I enjoyed being here, and please invite me back next time.
Thank you so much for that. That was Miss Kadia Francis. Look here, Delisa. Which part Delisa? Delisa is here with me.
Over here soaking everything because I was just so amazed by what she presented. I could sit here for another hour and listen. Honestly, I wasn't ready for that to end. Oh my God, Aishiba, I can see why you speak about her with such high regard. Beautifully done, girl. Beautifully.
Definitely loved it. And I have my notebook here taking notes, and I really implore you to do the same.